Hi, Sir David the Bard coming out of Australia, Kangaroo City, and I have 4 kangaroos at the door, so I have to make this a pretty fast video. I was just reading on this airline that landed, if you want to call it that, in San Francisco, and there were only 2 or 3 people killed, and that's wonderful. Not that they were killed, but the rest of the people were not killed. Now, let me tell you a little story about training Asians to drive. Now, this is an experience that I personally have. When my wife came from the Philippines to the United States, she couldn't drive a bicycle. She never had a bicycle. She never rode a bicycle. So I stupidly bought a new car. Beautiful Honda. God dang. Had the old sunroof on it so I could give the finger all the time. Black, leather, black, everything. And it finally turned me black. I've turned white again because I've been living the gospel more. But anyway, I'm not Lamanite brown yet. We drove many hours to teach her to drive. Well, we started off, and I asked her to unlock my power window. I was in the passenger seat, so I could lower my window. And she couldn't. And she couldn't. And you know, the Bard in those days, even these days, is not a very patient man. So I drove her into a parking lot at a mall, and I sat under the damn tree. And I said, you know what? When you learn how to put an electric window down in a car, I'll get back in and teach you to drive. But until then, I'm sleeping on the lawn. So I'm there for like a half an hour. Finally, I hear the windows going up and down. I get back in. Now, here's the biggest mistake I made. I didn't know she didn't speak English. I didn't know she didn't understand. Turn left, turn right, slow down, watch out, hard stop. Watch out, slow down. She didn't understand the language, the inflection, and the fear in my voice. Well, a long story short, we were driving, and we're on the freeway, going, whatever, 65, and I said, well, let's exit here. So she exited fine, but she didn't start slowing down. And I said, Mercy, slow down, there's a red light up there, slow down. She didn't. She didn't. I said, put on the brake. And she goes, what's the brake? I go, Jesus, it's the pedal in the middle. Jesus at the wheel. God dang. So I said to myself, self, you're going to die. I said, hey, this might not be a bad idea. So instinctively, in the passenger seat, I pulled up the emergency brake and locked the back wheels, because I knew that would slow the car down. I knew we were going to hit something, but the slower the better, right? Well, boo-boo, when those back wheels locked up, talk about oversteering. I go, we're going over. We're going to hit the side and roll. So I take the emergency brake off, and I'm screaming, slow down, watch out. Well, we shoot through the red light, and she hits the side wheels of an 18-wheeler cab truck. I never saw so many airbags in my life. As a matter of fact, if you haven't been hit in the face with a 300-mile-an-hour airbag, you ain't had the orgasm you think you can have. God. And when the bags all went down, there were bags everywhere. It was like 10 airbags. So we were going about 45 or 50, just hit it dead on and stopped. And I looked over at her, and she had a little wrist bent. I go, Jesus. I'd slap her if she didn't have a little injury. So we both get out of the car. We walk to the front. Now, I mean, this was a tough accident. The engine was up in the passenger compartment. It was like in the center of where I sat and where she sat. It went right through the firewall, came up into the car, and the hood and the mirrors and all of the fenders were back by our door. This was a total mess. And she gets out and she kind of paces a little bit. Now remember, she's from the Philippines and she'd only been here a month. And she said, well, it's not that bad. And I looked at her and I thought, well, does she have shit for brains? She said, we could fix this in the Philippines. A little duct tape, some rubber bands, and paint. It'll go again. I said, honey, I'm going to kill you. It's totaled. No, it's okay. We can drive it like that. I go, God damn. I'm going nuts. I'm going, Jesus, come for me. Jesus, come for me. So we get back in the car. And she's sitting there with her arm, you know, doing this like it's a serious injury. It wasn't shit. Well, my face is all red, not from being embarrassed, but from an airbag nearly ripping my head off. So I'm sitting in the passenger's compartment, and golly, we had fire engines and police cars. I don't know if there was a helicopter there or not, but there was like 13 emergency vehicles. It was a major intersection that was totally blocked. Now, a policeman comes over to my side of the car, and he kneels down, and he said, you okay? And I said, well, other than being in an accident, I guess. He said, well, are you teaching her? And yeah, the BART is teaching her. And he looks at me right in the eyes, and he goes, you're not very good, are you? Son of a bitch. I am good. She's a stupid shit. You're not very good, are you? Okay, now here's why I'm telling you that story. Okay, I'm not a pilot. I've played with a flight simulator almost as much as I've masturbated, but every time I lie to you, you know this is my lying signal. So I told you I will never lie to you, but when I do, this means it's a lie. Anyway, here we are on this plane that Asiana, I guess it's called, and he was coming in out of the, I don't know if it originated in China, but it was landing in San Francisco. Now, here's the problem. When you get on an airplane, you have no idea who the hell is flying it. You don't know if it's his first flight or his last flight. And in this case, it was both. Nobody knew on that flight this was his first flight in that airplane to that airport. I think he'd flown to that airport a couple of other times in other planes. Well, he had a very experienced pilot with him, like the BARD. The BARD was guiding the Filipino in her training. Well, this other guy had 12,000 hours or something on this plane, and he was sitting right there beside Mickey the Mouse, who clipped the wheels and the tail on the retaining wall, I guess cartwheeled. And when you're cartwheeling in a plane, there's not much control. The control surfaces don't work very good. And when shit catches on fire and you look in the mirror, you go, holy shit, I'm jumping out of here. I don't care what happens to the passengers. Well, long story short, it was Mercy's first time on that freeway and that turning. It was a disaster. Nobody knew that she was being trained. Nobody knew. She had an excellent, I've been a driver. I was a bus driver since I've been at BYU. I've never had an accident, and I haven't had a ticket for 47, 48 years. Not even a parking ticket. So I'm fairly experienced at training people to drive, but not Asians. Well, this guy was Asian. He was out of China. So anyway, he's coming in. Here's the problem. When you fly a plane like that, it has a lot of electronic and computer stuff, obviously, to help you land that plane. And those things are made for the airport that you're going into. When you're talking about a glide slope as you're coming out of the sky and going down and going to land on that runway, there's a glide slope there, and there's what they call VASI lights. And when you're coming in, the VASI lights will be all red, which means you're too low. So you give it some fuel and you pull it up a little bit, and then the VASI lights, the green one will be on top and the yellow one, and I forget what the combination is supposed to be, but as you're coming in, those VASI lights will tell you, are you going to hit that runway exactly right or not? Well, San Francisco had turned off the lights like 2 months before. Now, I don't know if the Chinese guy read the manual or not. He's brand new. I don't know if he read the manual. So that didn't help. He had no VASI lights coming in. Now, there's another automation on that airplane, and that is the glide slope is computerized so that, again, the plane by itself will hit the runway where it's supposed to hit the runway. Well, San Francisco, this is funny shit if it didn't hurt people, moved the runway 20 feet forward and painted a new line on it. So you had to go a little bit further before you bring it down onto the runway. There was another 20 or 30 feet that the runway was shortened. Well, the computer didn't know that. The pilot didn't know that. And the pilot that was sitting there trying to help the guy, he was a real ass. When you bring that size of a plane in at 135 miles an hour, that's way too slow. You're going to land no matter what. You have no chance of pulling that plane up. That should have come in at about 150 miles an hour. So it's like 15, 20 knots or miles per hour under what it should have been, so that you could pull it up full power and go up if you had trouble. Well, they're sitting there, I guess, watching movies and thinking the computer was going to land it. Well, the computer did land it on the seawall. And when they hit that, the experienced pilot looked at the junior pilot and slapped the shit out of him. Said, "You should have been watching." And he slapped the shit out of the other. Goes, "Well, you should have told me the runway moved." Slapped the other guy. "Well, I didn't know the seawall was standing up as I slapped the other guy. God dang, look at the tail is gone." It's very hard to steer a plane with no tail. And people are flopping out on the the rubber tubes and, what do you call it, ramps that they jump out with. Well, anyway, a long story short, this is a comedy of errors. It was his first landing of that plane, and he's going to be known for that the rest of his life. They're screaming Chinese at each other. The control tower can't hear shit because they don't speak Chinese. And the runway had moved, and the line and the lineup for the runway. So the computer was bringing it into the old runway. And they thought, wow, we're a little slow, but... And then they looked down and saw the wheels snap off. and the good guy, the big pilot, he slams the throttle wide open, trying to get the plane not to land, to go back up. 135 miles an hour. There's no way. It's too heavy, and it needs to roll on the ground a little bit and pick up to 150, 55. Depends. And then he can, what they call rotation, pull it up. So when he hits the throttle, which puts those two big engines at full power, and I don't know, the Rolls-Royce engines, I think, with 10 million horsepower, he looks in the rearview mirror and there's no tail. He goes, holy shit, we can't fly without a tail. So he knows we're going in. We're going in. So, you know, he got his Buddha heart out, and Buddha, whatever the Buddhas do, I don't know. But he got that shit out, and he says that we're dying. We're actually dying. So anyway, it appears that it was human error, but it was also error that these guys should have read the manual that says the runway was short. Don't rely on your telepathy coming in. You know that word. You're going to be short. And they were. By the time they hit the runway, this is how I used to land on the simulators. By the time these two Chinese guys landed the plane on the runway, they had no wheels and no tail section. Now, the BART has flown a lot of places. I don't know if I've flown into San Francisco. I flew into San Francisco once, real. But on the simulator, I don't remember. But I'm going to tell you something. Even on the simulator, when the wheels snap off and the tail snaps off, the computer screen says, "You're screwed. Jump the hell out of here. Don't set yourself on fire." So anyway, it's not funny, but it's funny. It's his first landing. He certainly screwed it up, to say the least. But the experienced guy beside him, you know, San Francisco wasn't in a heavy fog. You can see, even on a simulator, you can. I've landed in the Caribbean, I think, on a simulator, and you come right in over an 8-foot chain link fence, and the runway is right there. And Heber, Utah, the end of their runway has like an 8-foot chain link fence, and you just barely clear that with your wheels. So anyway, he didn't clear it. The seawall snapped his wheels off, and then it snapped the tail off, and then I guess they just started slapping the shit out of each other trying to get the window open because they knew they were going to jump out. So anyway, I love the Asians. I'm going to ask from now on, is this your first flight? And if it is, I'm going to trade to another flight. I don't, you know, Mercy had a terrible accident her first time. This guy had a terrible accident. I don't want to be in a training program. I don't want to be in a training program. The Bard wants the wheels on and the tail on when the plane hits the runway, not when it hits the seawall. Thanks.